Hey guys, it's Miss Landry again. Welcome to video 2 for today. The learning objectives on this one are going to be to start to understand the debate between nature versus nurture and what that means. And then we're also going to review the basic approaches to studying psychology. So let's get started. All right. Psychologists really struggle with this question, okay? Nature versus nurture. And what does that actually mean? Take a second, answer that in your journal, kind of think about what you think it means, and then we'll dive into it a little further. So pause the video, come on back. Okay, so nature versus nurture. Are we born with the traits that we have, or do they develop over time? So I want you to take a look at this picture and kind of look at these different things. So what does nature indicate? It's all about genetics, right? So what have you inherited? What are your physical appearances? Did you get your personality from genetics? Is your IQ from genetics? Is your response to stressful situations coded for in your DNA? If you believe yes for all of those, then you are a nature person, okay? Now let's take a look at nurture. Nurture has to do with your environment, how you were raised. So your experiences, right? Your social relationships, the culture you grew up in. And the question that they've really tried to look at is things like alcoholism. So it used to be believed that alcoholism was really just a decision. You have made a decision to drink. Well, we have found some genes that actually drive alcoholism. So, is that nature? Is it nurture? But some people who have these genes don't actually become alcoholics. So what is the difference? Is that the nurture part of it? Also intelligence. So, IQ is very hard to measure. The IQ tests we have do not measure your actual IQ. And you've probably heard of EQ, right? Emotional intelligence. And so is that nature? Are you set with a single level of intelligence by your genes, or can you push back past that? How do you control your emotions? Okay, so are you someone that is very frightened? Are you depressed? Do you fly off the handle and have rage? Is that genetics, or is that based on experiences that you've had? Obesity is another big one. No pun intended, sorry. But think about, there's a huge genetic component to body mass. And we're going to talk a little bit about epigenetics, and we are finding that there's a lot of epigenetic changes to DNA that are caused by your environment. So is it maybe a combination of the two? What about gender differences, right? So is that actually nature, or is it nurture? The occupation you chose, were you destined for that through your genetics, or was it because of experiences you had? And then finally, your personality. You kind of can't see that there. Let me move that away. Is your personality determined by your genes? What do you think? I want you to take a second, pause the video, and I want you to really write down what you think about this list here. Pick 2 or 3 and write some of your thoughts about those. Okay, and we'll share those a little bit in class when we come back together. All right, let me clear this off and we'll move on. So that's really the argument of, are we born with these traits, or do they develop over time? So what I'm going to tell you is, I wonder, does it have to be an either or? Can't it be nature and nurture? So maybe there's like you're born with a certain area and your nurture tells you where in that area you fall for that trait. But we're going to discuss this in great detail as we go on. I love this idea that different perspectives kind of formed on how to approach psychology. And I want you to take a look at this picture. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this story, but I want you to take a second, stare at this picture for a little bit, read what everybody's saying. Notice that they're all blindfolded, okay? And kind of write down in your journal what you think this is about in terms of nature versus nurture. So pause the video and then come on back. Okay, so what I want you to think about is that your reality is really formed from your, like, what is around you. So imagine this person, let me get a pen here, hang on. So like this person over here who's holding on to the elephant's tail can only feel the elephant's tail and thinks it's a rope, right? This person up here is getting air from the ears of the elephant. They think it's a fan. This is all they have to go on. So if you only have a tiny little piece of information, you're missing the truth, okay? So it's very important to understand that all these different approaches we have for studying the mind get at like one piece. It gets at the leg, which she thinks is a tree. The tusk is a spear. But by looking at the mind in a lot of different ways, we can get a better picture of what it is. Hope that helps. I love that picture and I love that idea. So, okay, last thing we're going to do is I want you to review. We're going to review the perspectives really quickly. There's 7 that you need to know. I want you to see if you can remember them from the first video. We went over a few of them pretty quickly, but let's see if we can do it. And it might help as you're doing this to come up with a mnemonic to remember it. So let's take a look. Okay, here they are. Behavioral, biological, cognitive, social cultural, which we haven't really gone over, evolutionary, psychodynamic, and humanistic. So these were all in your reading in mods 1 through 3. You definitely need to know what all these do, okay? It's okay if you don't get them and don't really see a difference between some of them and you're kind of like, well, I'm just memorizing facts. That's okay. We're going to go into them in more detail. I want you to think about how these different approaches focus on the mind, okay? So for example, behavioral, here's an example. Let me change colors. Behavioral focuses on observable responses, okay? So how do external forces influence our behavior? Cognitive is all about memory. So we're going to go over these in more detail, each one. But for now, make sure that you know these. On Canvas, I do have a really good concept map for you right here. So it's on Canvas. If you go to today's page, I think you'll see it. But remember, it's understand that know the keywords, know the people. It's going to make more sense as we keep going. I promise. And that's it for today. Thanks, guys. Or no, I'm sorry. That's it for video too. You got 2 more to go. Thanks, guys.